Hey guys, it's Krystal, and as you guys may know, I've been using the iPhone 12 mini for the past few months. In between then though, ProRaw officially came out for the iPhone 12 Pro and the 12 Pro Max. It's been a few months, but I thought it'd be cool to revisit the 12 Pro Max, take some photos, and see what the hype is all about. Also, big thanks to Visible for sponsoring this video. Now, if you don't really know what ProRaw is, or you're new to using it, what makes it so special is that it takes the flexibility of a RAW file and blends that with computational photography. So things like Deep Fusion, Smart HDR, and Night Mode. You've probably heard the term RAW in the photo world, and essentially it's an uncompressed image that has way more information and latitude over something like a compressed JPEG that more or less bakes everything in, so what you see is what you get. So if you're editing a RAW photo, you can do things like change ISO and white balance. Let's say you have an image where the sky is too bright, there's a good chance you can recover those highlights and bring those bright areas down and still get a good looking image. Whereas with JPEG, you can try and do those things, but you're really moving information that's not really there, so the image starts to fall apart. Now, shooting RAW isn't really new to iPhones. There's been third-party apps that allow you to do that, but with that, you will lose the computational photography side of things, which is really a reason why smartphone cameras are as good as they are these days, honestly giving you images straight out of the camera that you wouldn't be able to get with a DSLR. So before we go and take those photos, I want to give a big thanks again to Visible for continuing to support the channel. They make phone service simple, it's reliable, affordable, and powered by Verizon 5G, and my goal today is to get my dad to switch. How much do you pay for your phone bill right now?
For the 3 hours, I pay like $190 around there.
Dang, you could be saving a lot of money with Visible. They have Party Pay now. It's like a family plan, but you don't have to do it with family, you could do it with friends too. And when a fourth member joins, you can pay as low as $25 per person.
So how do you sign up at?
You sign up through the Visible app or online. There's no stores. Everything is virtual. You don't have to go in person and deal with, the people in the store. We know you don't like that. What's also really cool is you can sign up with eSIM, which takes 15 minutes or less. And if you're not familiar with eSIM, it's short for embedded SIM. So you don't have to wait for a physical SIM card to be shipped to you. You can just sign up instantly if your phone is compatible. And it's a cool way to give Visible a test drive without having to change your number or anything like that.
Alright, so I can switch right away?
Yes.
Alright, so yeah, let's sign up.
So he's in. Make sure you stay tuned for that family update in part 3. And if you're interested in checking out Visible for yourself, I got the link down below. All right, I'm outside about to shoot some photos. It is a bright, beautiful sunny day. We have some direct sunlight, so definitely going to push ProRaw to its limits. Obviously, golden hour always looks beautiful, but it's hard to make it look bad, so we're definitely gonna test it a little further with some harsher light here. Before we do that though, gotta make sure ProRaw is on. So to do that, just hop into settings, scroll down to camera, here we go, formats, and then right there under photo capture, toggle on Apple ProRaw. And now when you hop into the camera app, there's a little RAW button on the top with a little slash. You just press it once and it's on. You could use it on the wide, telephoto, ultra wide, even in selfies too. Now I got all my photos on my MacBook, and before we jump into an edit, I want to talk about file size because ProRaw files are definitely a lot bigger. So here's a ProRaw and a non-RAW HEIC file, and the cool thing with ProRaw is that they're DNGs, so you can edit them in a handful of Pro applications. You're not tied down to some Apple-specific format where you have to edit on an iPhone or iPad. For example, they work really well with Lightroom and Photoshop. But again, that file size, because here's the same photo, one's ProRaw, one is not, and the ProRaw is over 10 times bigger. And as you'll see, having that RAW flexibility is amazing, but if you're gonna be shooting these all the time, definitely keep that file size in mind because it will add up. So like I mentioned before, ProRaw does work with the front-facing camera, which is really nice. Here's a great example of Smart HDR working with ProRaw. If we take a closer look at that, this is straight out of the camera, there's no edits, and I was definitely standing in the shadows here. There's a lot of harsh light, but it looks amazing just as is. And it's cool that with ProRaw, I can push it even further if I wanted to. So to recap, ProRAW files are big. It works across all the cameras, including that front-facing camera. You get Deep Fusion, Smart HDR, Night Mode, but it does not work with Portrait Mode. Now to show why computational photography is so special, here we have the same shot. On one hand, this is taken on my Sony a7S III with a 24-70 G Master lens. Definitely not a cheap combo by any means. And then the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and they're both straight out of the camera, no edits. The biggest things that pop out of me is how good the sky looks and how well exposed I am on the iPhone's picture. Yes, these are things that you can bring back on the Sony picture if you edit, and of course there's a bigger sensor on there too, so that depth of field is looking good, but I'm still really impressed with how good the iPhone looks straight out of the camera. So here's an even more extreme example taken in the exact same spot as where I took that selfie. So now you can really see just how shadowy it was there, but the iPhone Smart HDR is really kicking in full force here. There's even things that I feel like if you edited the Sony picture, you wouldn't be able to bring back, like that really bright area on the table. To be honest though, you can get this shot without ProRAW, so it just goes to show how good it performs straight out of the camera. But the coolest thing about all this is the fact that you can push it even further. For example, on the left here, we have an untouched ProRAW photo. This is straight out of the camera, no edits at all. And again, I'm standing in the shadows. That sun on the back is very bright. If this wasn't ProRAW and this was as far as I could take it, I would probably be pretty happy with it. But because we do have that extra flexibility, I was able to retrieve some of that lost information in the highlights. If we take a look at the original picture, that little tree on the back looking pretty sad there, and I was able to bring him back. And across the whole photo, there's just a lot more detail in the edited version. So this is what we get when you mix computational photography with RAW. So now let's take one of my photos and bring it into Lightroom, and make sure you are up to date if you're doing this, because there is a new Apple ProRAW profile. There's also an Apple ProRAW monochrome for black and white photos, and this is across the board for Lightroom CC, Lightroom Classic, and even Lightroom Mobile. If for whatever reason you wanted to edit the photo without the processing, you can go into Adobe Color, and this is just like the straight raw file. But of course I want to take advantage of those processing benefits, so let's go in and edit with Apple ProRAW on. Now what I'll typically do is hit the auto button and make adjustments from there. So this did a nice little, brought in some more light. I probably will bring it up a little bit more, see how far we can push it without blowing out that sun up there too much. This image is a little cooler than I would like it to be, so I'm gonna bring up the warmth a little bit with temperature, add a little tint, get rid of some of that green. Let's bring up, ooh, yes, let's bring up the shadows. Wow, yeah, I love like flipping back and forth, like while I'm editing, just to see where I'm at, what I did so far. Did I push it too much? But now I'm gonna adjust some of the color here. I'm just like trying to make it super warm. I want like that super warm look. Like it almost looks like deserty in a way. We can add that blue, that teal to the sky, but I don't want to make it too teal. I don't like to overdo that orange and teal look. So just subtle amount of teal. Now let's add the brush to select me and make me even brighter, since that is like the center of the photo. It's still like a little shadowy for me, so just a little bit brighter. I'm also gonna do a nice little gradient and brighten up that foreground just a little bit, add some more contrast. Then I'm gonna go back to the main edit toggles and bring down, because it's getting a little too bright, bring down the highlights just a little bit. How about some vignette action? Let's see what that looks like. I feel like the ground is still looking a little dull, so I'm going to crank up the red because there's just a lot of red rocks there. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that. Just a quick basic edit. I mostly mess with the color here because, like I said, that processing really did a great job at exposing things pretty properly. So if we dial it back to the complete stripped raw photo, this is it. And then with the edits on, definitely makes a tremendous difference. So this is definitely going to be my workflow when it comes to taking iPhone photos. I'm always going to gravitate towards a ProRAW option because I just love the results that I've been getting with it. But let me know in the comments, have you guys tried the ProRAW Life yet? Hit me up on Twitter and Instagram and send me some of your edits. And again, big thanks to Visible for sponsoring this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you later.